Welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast with your host, award-winning author Paul C. Thornton, a weekly conversation with the amazing cruisers featured in the Joy of Cruising trilogy, comprised of The Joy of Cruising, Cruising Interrupted, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again. Each book is a compilation of features about cruisers and cruise and travel personalities from around the world. It's the next best thing to cruising, hearing about cruising from the unique and diverse perspectives of Paul's amazing guests.
Hello, passionate cruisers. This is Paul.
And this is Cheryl. This week on the Joy of Cruising podcast, we want to share our reflections on our recent cruise, a Transatlantic on Virgin Voyages Scarlet Lady, Miami to the Med. Not a review. YouTube can do a much better job than us, but just some random thoughts. The cruise starts with 8 sea days, so we will be trying so much of the award-winning food that I have heard so much about. The cruise was special in a couple of ways. As you know from a podcast we did a couple of months ago, we were on a quest in 2024, 2025 to check some items off of our bucket list, overflowing bucket list that is, which this cruise allowed us to do just that. Namely, it was our first transatlantic and our first time experiencing Virgin Voyages. Scarlet Lady is the first of the soon-to-be 4-ship Virgin Voyages fleet, having debuted just a cruising restarted in 2021. Funny, when Virgin Voyages cruise line was launched prior to the pandemic, we did not make any immediate plans to try the new line for 2 major reasons. Virgin jettisoned 2 significant cruising traditions that immediately lowered any appeal it may have for us: buffets and kids. Buffets were Paul's entry drug to cruising, having started our traveling adventures at all-inclusive resorts in Jamaica and Caribbean. And while our children are grown leading up to the shutdown, we had sailed 5 straight cruises with our granddaughter. Our last cruise before the shutdown was to celebrate her 10th birthday. After COVID, we're no longer all that enamored of buffets. And although we have cruised a couple of times with our now teenage granddaughter, we no longer take her on every cruise with us. Besides, we have heard so many wonderful impressions of Virgins from the podcast guests. Virgin Voyages moved from ho-hum originally to we have to try it, and we are ever glad we did.
I consider Virgin Voyages as a playground for adults, but it's not for everyone. I get the sense that in designing Virgin Voyages, a group sat around a table at some high-priced retreat and brainstormed. How can we distinguish this new cruise line from all the other mainstream cruise lines out there? And that process resulted in the 2 big differences I mentioned: no kids and no buffets. Add to that, no main dining rooms. Once those decisions were affirmed, a number of other decisions, some related to the no kids, no buffets, no main dining rooms, as well as unrelated ones were made, ranging from very significant to subtle. And then some were in the middle, like the red hammocks. More about that in a second. Significant also includes no gratuities and free Wi-Fi, both almost unheard of as standard offerings in cruising below the luxury cruise line level. By the way, Virgin Voyages is considered a premium cruise line. Its main direct competition are lines like Celebrity, Princess, Holland America, and Cunard. Virgin also competes with cruise lines just below premium, like Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, Carnival, and MSC. Embarkation was uneventful, and after a quick bite to eat, we were able to check out our cabin. By the way, During that first meal, we met the first couple whose name we recall, Bob and Barbara. I'm fairly sure Bob is listening because he mentioned to me the YouTubers he follows, and I told him I had interviewed them on the podcast, and I watched him bookmark the show on his phone. I'll come back to Bob shortly. Our cabin type was an extra large sea view terrace, which I think is identical to other terraces or balcony cabins, except one huge benefit and one huge drawback. What differentiates the XL terraces from the other balcony rooms is that the XL terraces have an extra large bathroom, large enough that the nice size square-shaped shower has its enclosure, and then right next to it is an enclosure for the toilet. Wonderful. Much more privacy and more conducive to two people using the bathroom at the same time if necessary. That's a great touch. However, the downside is, for some reason on these XL cabins, there's no external door to the bathroom. So sometimes when I stepped outside the shower, my behind was quite chilly. Would be nice if they remedy that in Scarlet Lady's upcoming dry dock.
The room was very nice for several modern touches like reading lamps, reading lights, plenty of USB input, mood lighting, electronically controlled curtains, nice sized balcony with Virgin Voyages trademark, the red hammock.
I wonder how many people leave their first Virgin cruise wondering how they can fit that hammock into their backyard decor. I know I haven't stopped thinking about it since I got off.
The lighting, the curtains, and the TV were operated by a tablet, which kind of had a mind of its own at times. The TV had a few good channels and the best collection of included movies we've seen on a cruise ship. Of course, the safety video was viewed on the TV, and it was definitely Virgin Nest. Unlike any safety video we have ever seen, I am sure the subsequent muster drill could not have been any more efficient.
Another very significant difference, directly related to the absence of main dining rooms, is the existence of 6 excellent specialty restaurants. Of course, all cruise lines have specialty restaurants, some arguably equal to or better than the offerings from Virgin. So what makes Virgin's a very significant difference? The specialty restaurants on Virgin are included in your cruise fare. Accordingly, we tried every specialty restaurant on Scarlet Lady, several more than once. We only experienced trying all of the ship's specialty restaurants one other time. Once we splurged on Royal Caribbean's Symphony of the Seas because it has so many food venues and purchased an unlimited dining plan. For perspective, an unlimited dining plan on Symphony for a 14-day cruise will set you back more than $1,000 a person. Let's recap the Scarlet Lady specialty restaurants in the order that we tried them. And the collection of specialty restaurants is the same across the Virgin Voyages fleet. Extra Virgin is Virgin Voyages' version of Italian cuisine. It was as good as I've had. Extra Virgin was only available for dinner, and it was the only specialty restaurant we were unable to get into more than once. In general, that's not all that bad on Virgin Voyages. And this is true for all Virgin Voyages specialty restaurants. The menus are nowhere near as extensive as on other cruise lines. Each restaurant generally features 3 mains. At Extra Virgin, I had grilled Mediterranean sea bass, and Cheryl chose grilled young chicken. The third entree was a vegetarian dish, Brussels sprouts arrabbiata. Hope I said that right. Some favorite sides from Extra Virgin were a romaine and frizzy salad featuring white anchovies, a pasta salad a seafood pasta with mussels and shrimp, and gelato. There are several shipboard Italian restaurants we haven't tried on other lines, but Extra Virgin is right up there with the ones we have tried. The next restaurant we tried was The Wake, which serves both brunch and dinner. It was outstanding. Our first time there was for brunch. We also had our traditional disembarkation meal there and had dinner at The Wake on 2 other occasions. At brunch, of the starters, I had 3 of them on multiple occasions. They were that good. One was a wedge salad, of course, with blue cheese and bacon. One was poached shrimp. And best of all was their presentation of clam chowder. Interestingly, the clam chowder ingredients, clams, potatoes, smoked bacon, were served in a dry bowl, and then the server poured the New England-style soup on top of the ingredients. Excellent. Tasty mains we tried for brunch included brioche, French toast, and soft-shell crab benedict. Dinner mains included shrimp and grits, a different take on shrimp and grits than I have had before. Good, but I have had better. New Zealand lamb chops and pan-roasted salmon. One minor nit. I had New Zealand's lamb on several occasions at several restaurants on Scarlet Lady, and I didn't see a mint jelly offering, which to me always goes with lamb. At the Wake on disembarkation morning, I had several beverages, as I still had a high double figures amount remaining on my bar tab. So I got my every morning flat white espresso with a shot of vanilla. Then I tried a Bellini, and finally a filthy, bloody, non-virgin Mary. The next restaurant we tried was Pink Agave. It's what I like to call the Mexican restaurant that you don't dare call a Mexican restaurant. It's made clear in the restaurant. No tacos or burritos here. This was one we visited twice. Just about everyone who sailed on Virgin, when they come on the podcast, recommends Pink Agave's signature dish. But they always say, get the steak with cheese on it. Well, I got the bistic marinero in escabeche, which now I understand why they say get the steak with cheese on it, which is described as ribeye steak, chili ancho, and quesillo. However you say it, it lived up to the recommendations of my guests. On my second visit, I had the roasted duck. One side I had, I will say, actually they call it a small plate. I never experienced the contrast of pomegranate seeds versus jalapeno in guacamole, but I'm a convert now. Razzle Dazzle is another specialty restaurant that serves both brunch and dinner. I believe it started off mainly as Virgin Voyages vegetarian restaurant, with a couple of meat-based dishes on it indicated as naughty on the menu. I think the menu has evolved somewhat, where it is not as dominated by plant-based selections. Listeners, correct me if I'm wrong on that, and by the way, now you can really correct me using the new ability to text the Joy of Cruising podcast. You'll see that ability listed. Please text us right at the top of each episode. We went to Razzle Dazzle a couple of times, where brunch, lunch, and dinner is offered. For brunch, there were various egg dishes, avocado toast, acai bowls, oatmeal brulee, and lunch added a couple of salads, a fried chicken sandwich, and more. For dinner, Razzle Dazzle added fish and chips and several vegetarian and plant-based selections. Goombay is a Korean barbecue-style restaurant where food is cooked by your private chef server. I love most things Korean culinary, but I wasn't all that eager for Goombay. Similar to hibachi-style restaurants on other lines, Goombay requires communal seating with other guests. That's fine. However, Goombay kind of forces interaction, or some would say forces interaction, with a cute little drinking game that takes place before the dinner. Don't even think about using the excuse that you don't drink. You can opt for water instead of their rice wine, which was delicious, by the way. You've heard me mentioning how I am an off-the-wall introvert, and I have a bit of a challenge with crowds, so that's why I had some trepidation about the experience. But the couples at my table were all personable and fun. The food was delicious, and the service was great. Goombay is as great as hibachi in terms of taste, but it can't match the entertainment of the hibachi chefs that I've experienced. Finally was Test Kitchen. Test Kitchen was fun and delicious. It is based on the molecular gastronomy trend. I've never been to a restaurant that specializes in that style on land, but at sea, with Virgin Voyages Test Kitchen, it is a clever but not entirely unique take on molecular gastronomy. It reminded me of Royal Caribbean's Wonderland, which I loved on Harmony of the Seas and Symphony of the Seas. The similarities are both Test Kitchen and Wonderland serve some items of their menu in forms that are unrecognizable. For instance, if I recall correctly, at Wonderland, I drank my lobster out of a tube. Are you aware of any such other venues at sea that specialize in molecular gastronomy? Reach out to me. Yes, that's right, listeners. You can now text me. We call it fan mail. One advantage that Test Kitchen has is that there are two distinct menus depending on the day, whereas the Wonderland menu does not change. This didn't affect us because by the time we realized there were two menus, it was too late to go back to Test Kitchen on this cruise. Anyway, I ordered a nutty old-fashioned on the recommendation of Walter of Where's Walter Travel. And yes, you can definitely notice a great difference from a plain old-fashioned. The first dish was corn. It was shaped like a piece of corn on the cob, but it was clear that it wasn't. It was a custard or mousse consistency and was very tasty. It kind of reminded me of the corn pudding my sister-in-law makes every Thanksgiving, but not quite as sweet. Next was salmon that was served in a domed dish and was smoking when the dome was removed. As beautiful as that presentation was, it was gone much faster off my plate than it took to serve. Next was beetroot, a cranberry-colored vegetable which was presented covered by purple foam. It was the prettiest dish, but the foam lacked any pronounced taste and the beetroots itself wasn't very memorable. The main dish was by far the highlight of the Test Kitchen. It was very tasty. It was a choice of shrimp or New Zealand lamb. I routinely choose shrimp over most others, but this one was a no-brainer. Lamb from New Zealand, and that lamb was delectable. Next was asparagus. Normally we enjoy, but in its reconstituted form, it was kind of forgettable. And finally, strawberry. That's all it was described as. It was a dessert, and it was another highlight. And I can't quite describe it. Strawberries you stirred into a white cream and a mild but unmistakable hint of wasabi. Wasabi in a dessert. When we were not eating in one of the specialty restaurants, you would likely find us in the galley. Virgin Voyages food hall concept. Was Virgin first with that? I'm thinking that they were. I know NCL came after with the Prima, but I don't want to misinform our listeners. If you are aware of any other cruise lines that were doing the food hall concept before Virgin, message me, because I'd like to just make sure I'm right. There are several themed food stations around the perimeter of the galley, such as made-to-order salads from the Daily Mix, sushi from Bento Baby, tacos from Let's Taco About It, hot off the press paninis, burgers, desserts, and so on. And let me say something about desserts. This is one of the few cruises I have been on where the desserts tasted as good as they looked. Ideally, in the galley, Virgin Voyage sailors should have a seat, browse the menu, and when they are ready, flip up a flag on your table that indicates you are ready to order. Generally, promptly, someone came and took your order. This system worked fine for us for about a day. We learned that we wanted to go to each station and see the food. So that part of the buffet experience we wanted to hold on to. Besides, at virtually every station each day, there were daily chef specials, and we were there for them. Cheryl, remember that chicken coconut soup and that cream of mushroom soup?
Yeah, it was delicious.
So for us, it kind of became a hybrid of a buffet and a food hall. Oh, remember Bob from day one at the galley? Well, I ran into him on day 2 at the galley, and he told me emphatically, once and done. Incredulously, I asked why. He said he is a traditionalist and could already tell he was going to hate this cruise. He told me he is a Princess and Holland America guy and can't wait to get back to them. I understood. I hope I gained a listener, but that had to be one miserable cruise for Bob if that's how he felt on day 2. I do hope it got better for Bob. And Bob, if you're listening, and I think you are, text the show. I'd love to hear how things turned out.
Back to the galley. We had virtually no complaints about the galley. Only thing I would point out is that despite Virgin figuring out what other cruises do wrong and then doing it better, they are no better than any other cruise in terms of keeping food hot. One very distinct advantage to Virgin's version of a buffet was there were always plastic containers with salad, charcuterie, and bento boxes. We made good use of this, particularly on nights the NBA playoffs were on. We routinely stayed up till morning watching the games given the time difference from home, which would change every few days till we were 6 hours difference from North Carolina time. Another place we ate virtually every day down on deck 7 was the pizza place. It might not have been very creatively branded, but the pizza place was excellent. There were no pre-cooked slices sitting under a heat lamp. Every personal size pie was made to order. There were several selections available daily: cheese, margarita, a white pizza, and each day there was a daily special, which we often had. The pizza was great and currently is our number 2 after MSC Pizza.
Just across from the pizza place is another eatery we visited every day, the ice cream parlor, which was creatively branded Lick Me Till I Scream. Say that fast. Our first was a little frosty, pun intended, because it didn't offer gelato, which I am absolutely addicted to. But that was very short-lived. Similar to the pizza place, it had a series of standard choices, and then every day a special of the day. Flavors were great. Besides plain old vanilla, which is my favorite, they had strawberry milkshake, pistachio, key lime pie, butter pecan, malaga, which was rum raisin, and the alcohol in it is quite prominent, and a couple others. I tried almost every flavor, and believe me, it was a delicious step up from the included ice cream on other lines. They offered a diverse selection of cones, but I always ate in cups. Initially, 2 scoops of 2 different flavors, and then in a few days in, moving to 3 scoops of 3 flavors. I blame the ice cream parlor for disrupting my strict routine by introducing that flavor of the day. There are other places to get food and snacks, but I don't want to spend the majority of this episode talking about food. You'll think that's all we cared about. Oh, yeah, don't forget about the social club, where you can get chicken wings, hot dogs, popcorn, pretzels, even included gummy bears and Twizzlers. Virgin Voyage is a playground for adults.
A Virgin Voyage cruise is chock full of things to do inside as well as outside. Let's start with outside. As Paul just alluded to, we characterize a Virgin Voyage cruise as a playground for adults. Among the whimsical seats and the sitting areas, giant chess sets, and shuffleboard, they really do have an adult-sized playground equipment. Paul and I seesawed and pushed each other in the swings. There was a boxing ring with a heavy bag, and Paul couldn't walk past the heavy bag without hitting it a few seconds. There was also more serious outdoor fitness equipment. One level up, on deck 16, was a walking track.
The adult playground theme carried over inside in various ways. There was an arcade, and it was absolutely free. But no, you won't find any virtual reality in this arcade. It was comprised of all OG games like those my generation played: Defender, Pac-Man, Donkey Kong. Right outside the social club I mentioned earlier, there was a large selection of old school board games. They even had Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Rock'em Sock'em Robots. I was in the 4th grade. There were all kinds of things happening all over the ship, around the clock. Bingo, trivia, speed, jigsaw puzzling. Sometimes these activities were hosted by the Diva, who in my research is beloved by Virgin Voyages sailors. I'm curious to learn more about the Virgin Voyages Diva tradition and the Diva herself, who on Scarlet Lady was named Dixie Crystals. Dixie was fun, funny, and could she ever sing? I am delighted that I will be hosting Dixie Crystals on the Joy of Cruising podcast Monday, May 27th. Organized wellness activities were plentiful and diverse and ran continually from 7 in the morning to 7 in the evening. We only did Zumba, but wanted to do a fun-looking bungee fitness class. But these classes do sell out. Some of the other wellness activities included topics like yoga, meditation, and acupuncture. There was music everywhere, inside and out. Our favorite way to enjoy music was lounging outside listening to DJ Gilla. I would like to see Virgin bring on a reggae group for around the pool. Maybe that has been the case on some of the other ships in the fleet, but it wasn't the case on Scarlet Lady when we cruised. On another line, I've even seen a single individual who played steel drums to reggae and hip-hop music. He gave a captivating show around the pool and added just the right ambiance. I would love to see Virgin add something like that. Virgin Voyages is not known for big production shows and Vegas-style reviews. Instead, more intimate, audience-immersive entertainment. A favorite is dual reality, kind of an acrobatic love story. There was an LOL's comedy theater featuring a couple of stand-up comedians and a magician. The magician was good, but would have been better in a smaller setting. Carnival remains head and shoulders above all lines in the area of stand-up comedy, but I am glad that Virgin is doing more to infuse stand-up into its entertainment, because that was not a priority early on. One show we enjoyed immensely was by the hypnotist, Nadine Manuel, aka the undisputed queen of comedy hypnosis. Virgin Voyages sailors got to experience Nadine in several settings. Comedy theater, where I first met her as the featured performer, a lecture about hypnosis, and several health and wellness presentations like pain management and hypnosis weight loss. I went into the session somewhat dubious of hypnosis, though I did believe in hypnotherapy because I once wrote about an amazing world traveler with a debilitating fear of flying, and she got over it with hypnotherapy. On a cruise ship, I knew it had to be entertaining, but I just had my doubts. I kind of looked at it as being entertainment hypnosis. Well, Nadine knocked me off my feet. The highlight was after putting a group of volunteers in a trance, she singled out one and hypnotized him into believing he was Beyonce. It was absolutely hilarious and can be seen on the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group and on my IG account. By the way, Beyonce's real name was Brian, and we spent time with Brian and his wife September. We became trivia partners, and September was an absolute whiz. I know they are listening. Big shout out to Bo. Hopefully we will see Brian in September again, but I will always think of Beyonce when I see him. Nadine was one of the best shows we have ever experienced on the ocean, and I am pleased to say she too will be on the Joy of Cruising podcast. Nadine, Hypnotist of the Seas, Thursday, May 30th.
Let me say something about the itinerary. After 8 sea days, we stopped at Funchal, Madeira, an island of Portugal. By this time, I was very much in need of land. Funchal was beautiful and picturesque, and we posted a number of photos at the Joy of Cruising podcast Facebook group and IG account. Our second stop was in Malaga, Spain. A main attraction of Malaga is the legacy of Pablo Picasso, the great Spanish painter and sculptor. Though he spent most of his adult life in France, he was born and raised in Malaga. We visited the house where he was born, decorated with art created by his father, a celebrated artist in his own right, and we visited the Picasso Museum funded by relatives of the artist. We even took a photo beside a steel sculpture of Picasso on a park bench. Again, see it at our Facebook group or IG account. The third stop of the cruise is Valencia, Spain. We approached that stop with anticipation because a year and a half ago, we stopped there on a Mediterranean cruise and did a nice tour. This time, we simply had some bad luck on the excursion, so not a lot of pictures to share. And that might be the first excursion with 0 photos. We disembarked in Barcelona, Spain, and as we did following our Mediterranean cruise. When last here, we did a really comprehensive Barcelona tour. This time, we got to the hotel. Paul put the finishing touches on the podcast schedule to come out the next day, and I had to go for a walk. Transatlantic was nice, but I needed land.
Overall, we rate our Transatlantic on Virgin Voyages a solid A. No significant negatives. There's little surprise I rarely hear a bad comment about Virgin, and so many cruisers who try it are apt to go back. I know that we will. For Cheryl's sake, it won't be for as many sea days. As we like to say, we'll see you on the ocean.
The Joy of Cruising and Cruising Interrupted each $16.99 plus shipping, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again for $18.99 can be ordered at the link on thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com. For each of the 3 books, use the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast and get $4 off. The Joy of Cruising books are also available at Amazon. Order the ebook at Amazon or your favorite online retailer. Stay in touch by joining the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or following the Joy of Cruising Podcast on Instagram. We're constantly adding new shows. Please leave a review and tell a friend about us. We hope you enjoyed this brief escape to the ocean. See you next week.